Listen, I want you to imagine something for a second. Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that nothing in your life has changed. Same habits, same excuses, same delays. And deep down, that same quiet frustration, the feeling that you could have done more, become more, but you didn't. Not because you couldn't, but because you didn't act. That's the part nobody talks about. Laziness doesn't feel dangerous. It feels comfortable. It feels harmless. It feels like, I'll do it later. But later is where dreams go to die. The truth is, laziness is not about doing nothing. It's about slowly disconnecting from the life you know you're capable of building. And the scary part? It happens so quietly that you don't even notice it until time is gone. Now let me tell you something real. When Jack Ma was young, he wasn't successful, confident, or powerful. He was rejected again and again. He applied for jobs and got rejected more than 30 times. He even applied to KFC when it first came to his city. 24 people applied. 23 got accepted. He was the only one rejected. Think about that for a second. Imagine standing there, watching everyone else get selected, while you're the only one left behind. Most people would take that moment and use it as an excuse. They would say, maybe I'm not good enough. They would slow down. They would stop trying. But he didn't. Not because he felt motivated. Not because he had confidence. But because he refused to let that moment define him. And that's where you need to wake up. Because right now, your problem is not lack of opportunity. It's not lack of talent. It's not even lack of time. Your problem is hesitation. Delay. That moment when you know exactly what you should do, but you don't do it. Instead, you wait. You scroll. You distract yourself. And then, you tell yourself a story that makes it okay. I'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow is just a comfortable lie your brain tells you to avoid discomfort today. Here's something most people never realize. Your brain is not designed to make you successful. It's designed to keep you safe. And safe means comfortable. No risk, no pressure, no pain. So, every time you think about doing something difficult, waking up early, working on your goals, pushing yourself, your brain resists. Not because it's bad for you, but because it's unfamiliar. And unfamiliar feels dangerous. That's why you feel lazy. It's not laziness. It's resistance to discomfort. But the problem is, everything you want in life exists on the other side of that discomfort. Let me give you another moment to think about. Imagine two people. Both have the same dream, same potential, same starting point. One of them acts when they feel ready. The other one acts even when they don't feel like it. Fast forward 1 year. Their lives are completely different. Not because one was smarter. Not because one was lucky. But because one moved and the other waited. That's it. That's the difference between average and extraordinary. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because deep down, you already know what you should be doing. You know the habits you need to build. You know the distractions you need to remove. You know the actions that can change your life. But knowing is not the problem. Acting is. And every day you don't act, you're not staying the same. You're training yourself to stay stuck. You're reinforcing the habit of delay. And habits, once built, don't ask for permission. They control you. Look at Jack Ma again. After all those rejections, he didn't suddenly become successful overnight. There was no magical moment where everything changed. He kept going. Small steps, learning, failing, trying again. While others were stopping, he was continuing. And that's the part people ignore. Success is not one big action. It's consistent movement, even when nothing exciting is happening. So what do? You don't try to change your whole life in one day. That's another trap. You start with one simple rule. Every single day, you do one thing that moves your life forward, especially when you don't feel like doing it. That's it. It sounds small, almost too simple, but it's powerful. Because that one action breaks the pattern. It shifts your identity. It turns you from someone who delays into someone who acts. And once that shift happens, everything changes. You start building momentum. And momentum is what most people are missing. They think they need motivation. No, they need movement. Because movement creates energy. Energy creates confidence. And confidence creates consistency. That's the cycle that builds success. Right now, you're not stuck because your life is hard. You're stuck because your actions are inconsistent. And consistency doesn't come from feeling good. It comes from doing what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. That's the truth. It's not exciting. It's not comfortable. But it works. So stop waiting for the perfect moment. Stop waiting to feel ready. That version of you who is disciplined, focused, and successful. That version is not built in comfort. It's built in action, in small decisions, repeated daily. And one day, those small decisions turn into a completely different life. And here's where things get even more real. Because laziness is not just about what you don't do, it's about what you slowly become. You don't wake up one day and say, I'm going to ruin my life. No one does that. Instead, it happens in small moments. You skip one opportunity. You delay one task. You ignore one responsibility. And in that moment, it feels small, almost harmless. But those small moments start stacking up. They become patterns. And patterns become your identity. Before you even realize it, you're no longer someone who tries. You become someone who avoids. That's the silent danger. Think about your daily routine. Not the version you talk about, the real one, the one you actually live. The time you wake up, the first thing you do, how you spend your hours, what you choose when you have free time. That routine is not random. It's a reflection of your mindset. And your mindset is shaped by repetition. So if you keep choosing comfort over and over again, your brain starts believing that comfort is your default setting. And once that becomes your default, change feels unnatural. That's why it gets harder to break out the longer you stay in it. Let me tell you another story. When Jack Ma applied to Harvard, he didn't get rejected once. He didn't get rejected twice. He got rejected 10 times. 10. Most people would have stopped after the second or third rejection. They would say, this is not for me, but he kept applying. Not because he expected a different result immediately, but because he refused to accept that rejection as his final answer. That's a completely different mindset. It's not about winning every time. It's about refusing to quit after losing. Now compare that to how most people deal with discomfort today. The moment something feels difficult, they step back. The moment something feels uncertain, they hesitate. The moment something doesn't give instant results, they lose interest. That's the difference. Successful people don't avoid discomfort. They build a relationship with it. They understand that discomfort is not a signal to stop. It's a signal that they're growing. And this is exactly where you need to shift your thinking. Because right now, you're treating discomfort like an enemy. You see it as something to escape. But what if you flip that perspective? What if every time something felt hard, you saw it as progress? What if instead of asking, why is this so difficult, you asked, what is this teaching me? That one shift changes everything. Because now, instead of avoiding challenges, you start leaning into them. Let's make this even more practical. Imagine you wake up tomorrow and you don't feel like doing anything productive. That feeling, that resistance, that's the exact moment that matters. Not later in the day when you feel better. Not when motivation suddenly appears. Right there, that moment decides everything. If you give in, you strengthen the habit of avoidance. If you act, even in a small way, you weaken it. That's how change works. Not in big dramatic moves, but in small decisions made in difficult moments. And here's something most people completely ignore. Laziness is addictive. The more you give into it, the stronger it becomes. Because every time you choose the easy path, your brain rewards you. It says, good job, you avoided discomfort. And that reward creates a loop. You start seeking that easy feeling again and again. That's why it's so hard to break. It's not just a habit, it's a cycle. But just like any cycle, it can be broken. And it doesn't require something extreme. You don't need to wake up at 4 a.m. tomorrow and completely transform your life overnight. That's not realistic. What you need is awareness and control. You need to catch yourself in those moments when you're about to choose comfort and interrupt the pattern. Even if it's something small. Even if it's just 5 minutes of focused work. That interruption is powerful. Because it proves to your brain that you're in control, not your habits. Now think about this. What if you did that every single day? Just one moment where you chose action over comfort. One moment where you did something you didn't feel like doing. Over time, those moments would stack. They would build momentum. And that momentum would start changing your identity. You would no longer see yourself as lazy. You would see yourself as someone who takes action. And once your identity shifts, everything else becomes easier. Look at Jack Ma again. Before Alibaba became a global company, it was just an idea. And not even a popular one. Many people didn't believe in it. Investors rejected it. People doubted it. But he didn't stop. He kept showing up, day after day. Not because it was easy. Not because he had guaranteed success. but because he had built the habit of persistence. That's what most people underestimate. It's not the idea that creates success. It's the consistency behind it. And this applies to you more than you think. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to feel confident. You just need to start moving. Because clarity comes from action, not thinking. Confidence comes from doing, not waiting. And results come from consistency, not motivation. Let's talk about another hidden truth. Most people think they need more time to change their life. But the reality is, it's not about time. It's about focus. You already have enough time to start. You just don't use it intentionally. Look at how much time is spent on things that don't move your life forward. Scrolling, watching, delaying, overthinking. That time exists. It's just not directed. So instead of asking, do I have time? Ask yourself, where is my time going? That question is uncomfortable, but it's powerful. Because it forces you to take responsibility. And responsibility is where real change begins. Here's something you need to understand deeply. Nobody is coming to fix your life. Nobody is coming to push you every day. Nobody is coming to force you to become better. That responsibility is yours. And yes, that sounds heavy, but it's also empowering. Because if it's your responsibility, it's also in your control. And control is everything. Because once you realize that your actions, your habits, your decisions are shaping your life, you stop waiting. You stop making excuses. You stop blaming circumstances. And you start acting. So let's bring it back to one simple idea. Stop trying to feel motivated. Stop trying to wait for the right moment. Stop trying to make everything perfect before you begin. Just start. Small, imperfect, uncomfortable, but start. Because the truth is, you don't need a massive change to transform your life. You just need consistent movement. Every single day. One step forward. No matter how small. And one day, those small steps will take you somewhere you never thought possible. Now, let's go deeper. Because what you think is laziness is actually something much more dangerous. It's not just about avoiding work. It's about avoiding responsibility for your own life. And the moment you understand this, everything starts to make sense. Because when you avoid responsibility, you also give up control. And when you give up control, you become passive. You start living on autopilot, days pass, weeks pass, and nothing changes. Not because life is against you, but because you're no longer actively shaping it. Think about this carefully. Every single day, you are making decisions. Even when you think you're doing nothing, you're still deciding. Deciding to delay. Deciding to avoid. Deciding to stay where you are. And those decisions are not neutral. They are shaping your future. So when people say, I'm stuck, what they really mean is, I've been repeating the same decisions for too long. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You can't build a different life with the same habits. It's impossible. You can't expect change while repeating the same patterns that created your current situation. That's like pressing the same button again and again and expecting a different result. It doesn't work like that. Look at Jack Ma one more time. When he started building his career, he didn't have resources. He didn't have a powerful network. He didn't even have strong technical skills in the beginning. But what he had was something most people don't develop: persistence under pressure. He kept showing up when there was no guarantee of success. He kept working when there was no validation. He kept believing when there was no evidence. And that's the difference. Most people need proof before they act. Successful people act and then create the proof. Now let's bring this back to you. Right now, you're waiting for something. Maybe motivation, maybe clarity, maybe the right time. But what if that thing never comes? What if the only way forward is to move without it? That's where real growth begins. Not when everything feels right, but when you decide to move anyway. And this is where discipline enters the picture. Not the kind of discipline people post about online. Not the flashy, extreme version. Real discipline is quiet. It's invisible. It's doing what needs to be done when nobody is watching. It's choosing progress over comfort, again and again, until it becomes part of who you are. Here's something powerful you need to understand. Your life is not controlled by what you do once. It's controlled by what you do daily. That's why small actions matter so much, because they repeat. And repetition builds identity. If you keep acting like someone who delays, you become that person. But if you start acting like someone who takes action, even in small ways, your identity starts shifting. And identity is everything, Because once you see yourself differently, your behavior follows. You don't have to force yourself anymore. It becomes natural. That's why some people seem disciplined while others struggle. It's not about willpower. It's about identity. Now let's talk about another hidden trap. Overthinking. Most people don't realize this, but overthinking is just a smarter form of laziness. It feels productive. It feels like you're planning, analyzing, preparing, but in reality, it's just another way of avoiding action. Because as long as you're thinking, you don't have to act. And as long as you don't act, you don't risk failure. A year from now, you'll either be proud of yourself, or you'll be sitting in the exact same place, with the exact same thoughts, telling yourself the exact same lies. I'll start soon. I just need a little more time. I'm not ready yet. But deep down, you'll know the truth. It was never about time. It was never about readiness. It was about action. And that's the part that hits the hardest. Because you can't blame your past forever. You can't keep pointing at your circumstances, your environment, your problems. At some point, you have to look at your life and say, this is on me. Not in a negative way, but in a powerful way. Because the moment you take ownership, everything shifts. You stop waiting for someone to save you. You stop hoping for the perfect opportunity. You become the person who creates it. That's what people like Jack Ma understood. He didn't wait for life to become easier. He became stronger. He didn't wait for opportunities to appear. He created them through rejection, through failure, through moments where most people would have quit. And that's the difference. Not talent, not luck, but the decision to keep moving forward no matter what. Now ask yourself something real. Not what sounds good, not what feels comfortable, but what's true. Are you actually trying, or are you just thinking about trying? Because there's a big difference. Thinking feels safe. Trying feels uncomfortable. Thinking keeps you in control. Trying puts you at risk. And most people choose thinking because it protects them from failure. But it also protects them from success. So if you've been stuck, if you've been feeling like you're not moving forward, maybe it's not because you don't know what to do. Maybe it's because you've been choosing the safe version of progress. The version where you plan, you think, you prepare, but you never fully commit. And that ends today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Because this moment, right now, this is where your life starts changing. Not in some dramatic, cinematic way, but in a quiet, powerful decision. The decision to take control. The decision to act, even when it's uncomfortable. The decision to stop negotiating with yourself every time things get hard. You don't need to do everything. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to suddenly become a completely different person overnight. You just need to do one thing. One real action. Something that moves your life forward. Something you've been avoiding. Something that makes you a little uncomfortable. That's it. Because that one action is not just an action. It's a signal. A signal to your brain that things are changing. A signal that you're no longer controlled by your habits. A signal that you're taking your power back. And once you do it once, you can do it again. And again. And again. That's how momentum is built. That's how discipline is created. That's how lives change. Not in one big moment, but in small decisions repeated daily. And one day, you'll look back and realize something powerful. You'll realize that the version of you who felt stuck, who felt lazy, who felt lost, that version didn't disappear because of motivation. It disappeared because you decided to act. Even when it was hard. Even when you didn't feel like it. Even when nobody was watching. That's the version of you that wins. So don't wait. Don't overthink. Don't delay. Start. Right now. Because your future is not waiting for you. It's being built by what you do today. And the only question left is, are you finally ready to take control? If this message hit you, if even one part of this made you stop and think, then don't just scroll away like always. Do something different this time. Like this video, not for me, but as a commitment to yourself. Subscribe because this is just the beginning of your transformation. And comment below, what is one thing you will stop delaying starting today? Make it real. Make it count. Because this time, you're not going back.